Okay. Welcome to the regular trustee meeting of Monday, April 27th, 2020 at 5:06 p.m. We will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it
stands
one nation
under
God, indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
We have an agenda. Are there any changes or corrections to the agenda?
I have none, Board.
Hearing no changes or corrections, need a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
I move to make a motion to accept the general ledger report in the amount of $378,471.82 for the 4/22/2020 payroll.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to accept the payment list and reports in the amount of $106,949.47 for warrants through April 24th, 2020.
I second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes. We have minutes of the April 13th, 2020 meeting. Again, I'd like to thank Mr. Rushing for having minutes along with our package at the same time. It's fantastic. Hard to get used to this change, but I'm
Thank
happy.
you.
Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes?
I have none.
I have none.
I make a motion to approve the minutes for April 13th, 2020 for the regular trustee meeting.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes. Okay, we come to the part of our meeting where if citizens are desiring to speak, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. And there is a live chat feature listed that you can click onto on YouTube and state what you have to talk about.
So, Board, we have a 30-second delay, so we'll give it just a few minutes here, or at least a minute. We have 4 people watching the stream.
Mr. Zahari, is anyone signing in?
Not yet, but we'll give it we're watching our watches here on it, so with the 30-second delay, so we'll give it just a few more. right, board, we could go ahead and move forward. There were no comments. We'll keep it open for just a few more minutes in case anybody's typing, and I'll let you know if there are any.
Okay, great. Is there any old business? Hearing none. Any new business? The administrator.
Thank you, board. In your packet on page 14 is a tower agreement with the city of Beavercreek. This is very similar, essentially cut and paste from the previous tower agreements that the board has approved. The city of Beavercreek is looking at moving their radio equipment from their site on Indian Ripple. It does offer some challenges. It's in the cemetery, and they're doing some modifications as well. They approached us probably about 4 months ago, discussing the ability to put their radio equipment on the tower for their road department. Staff reviewed it. We have plenty of room and capacity on the tower for it. So in front of you is a draft agreement. Both the draft agreement has been approved by and reviewed by legal and reviewed by staff on all technical specifications for any needs. This just a reminder that on that tower is our microwave system, as well as the microwave system for 911 data, for CAD information coming from the county to the tower at Station 61 at the Dayton Xenia site, and then it goes to Station 64 from there, Sugar Creek, from there to Bellbrook. So this is a very similar agreement. Council has it on their agenda as well for this evening. So I'm just looking, I have a motion on page 17, and I'll answer any questions.
Only question I had was, it really wasn't a question, it was more of I guess a concern to make sure that whatever, do the schools have anything on this tower?
No, not on this one. Schools have it on
Okay.
Station 61 tower.
Okay. And so it's more just of a concern for the city. Do they have any redundancy other than what will be on this tower? Or if this tower were hit by a tornado like we had happen last year to a station, does the city have redundancy for what they're putting on the tower?
Yeah, so I think this is a repeater, so it covers that area. So I think everything's still at their tower at City Hall, and they may have something down here at their Orchard site as well. So this is just to make sure they have complete coverage in the community.
Okay. Otherwise, I had no issue with it.
There is a motion on page 17 of your packet.
I'll make a motion to approve the Station 64 tower agreement with the city of Beavercreek as presented and authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
trustee Dean,
Yes.
trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Next item in your packet is some information that was shared from the Greene County Budget Commission starting on page 18. This also includes some information from the Office of Budget and Management. I have had one-on-one conversations regarding this with our fiscal officer, Mr. Rushing. So you'll see that there are some related to COVID-19, some potential losses of revenue. Obviously, the major one that we know of, because people are just not out driving right now, is the gas tax. There are also a lot of programs here locally at the state level that are waiving. So, for example, the license fee tax, they are waiving those for several months until people are allowed to go back out and register for license. The big issue that we're looking between that is the property tax revenue. The Budget Commission is expecting a 15% decrease in the second half of tax collection. I will tell you that I'll be working with our fiscal officer to look at potential spending later this year based on second half collection and some potential maybe even cuts with some projects in 2021 based on this. So Just kind of in relation, today at 2 o'clock, the governor did put out some, as he's calling them, responsible protocols for getting people back to work. I don't know if this is, what I've seen so far, it's not an executive order. So what he is going to allow is businesses to open up, but if they are not wearing a mask and they are going to require that the workers as well as clients wear masks. If neither one of them are wearing masks, then they cannot do business. They are still recommending that they're not lifting any social distancing in regards to groups of 10 or more, so that's still in place. The other thing is they are recommending if employees can still work from home to continue that operation. So I will review these in a little more detail. The conference started at 2 o'clock. Mr. Rushing and I were speaking at about 3 o'clock on this same issue as well as the revenue issue. And then at 3:30, the Dayton Area Managers Association. So there's a lot of moving parts to this. I don't know yet if this is an executive order, but he did announce this today. I'll be able to answer any questions as well as Mr. Rushing. In regards to just board, in regards to the operation of the township, I am probably going to open at least the government center, maybe starting the week of the 11th, by appointment only. So we're still handling the township business. We are doing permits. I was told today we received a lot of permits today. So we're still doing business with the community, but if they absolutely need to come in, we're going to look at the 11th to allow that, but by appointment only, and by what I believe is essentially the responsible protocols issued by the state. They will not be allowed to enter the building without wearing a mask, and then of course any contact we have with the general public be required wearing a mask as well. And then I'll put something together in regards to a policy to where we get back to full operation. So I'll be evaluating it this week, and then potentially move into that scheduled by appointment opening the week of the 11th.
I had a question or comment, I guess, relative to the 15% projected decrease, I guess, in tax revenue. I mean, there's no tax waiver being issued, so the 15% would be from folks that are deferring or delaying making the scheduled payment in July, but there will be a catch-up. So at some point, that tax will be paid or collected.
Correct.
So when we look at 2021, while we might have a blip in 2020, by no later than second half of 2021, we would have recouped that.
Yeah, this is going to be a very similar situation that we were looking at related to the tornado, that there will be a dip, and then we would see, instead of having, in regards to a levy, having all the money come in at the beginning of the levy cycle, we're going to see another kind of dip, and then an increase on that when those taxes are due. So yes, the question is, and what we got to evaluate is how long do we push off some of these projects? How long, if any, cuts need to be in place? But this is not a long-term thing. It's just how long is it going to be? So till the tax revenue comes in.
Well, the tornado, though, that was going to be a situation where, number one, the tax was waived and potentially waived, and there was a revaluation, and you had to wait for the new value to hit the books. In this case, there's no revaluation or devaluation.
Correct.
It's simply a delay in collecting.
Correct. Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we know when is the next triennial revaluation?
So it was just completed. So there were before all this started, I was having conversations with the county auditor on what evaluation increases we should see in regards to percentage. Now that doesn't affect the outside levies. It does affect the inside millage. So, there's been some numbers out there. They're not official yet. So, but the residential properties were just reevaluated.
Okay. Good information.
Thank you, board. And if I get any more, I'll put it in the packet for your review and consideration as well. Thank you, board. Next item is in regards to the vehicle registration permissive tax. We do have the ability under the tax law the gas tax that was passed under the transportation budget does allow cities, counties, and townships to increase their license fee by $5. As you recall, we did this several years ago, and we pledged the money towards the super street and to pay the county for the upfront costs that they provided both to the township and the city of Beavercreek. We do have that ability to go up another $5. And what I'm recommending is that we hold 2 public hearings to hear from the community before we take action at a meeting to increase the license fee. What I'm recommending now that our meetings are at 5, we can hold the public hearings at the end of the meeting. And what I was recommending, what I can recommend to the board is the second meeting in May and the first meeting in June, so that we can pass something before the July 1st deadline. So that'll give us 2 meetings plus the last meeting in June for a resolution to consider either increase or not increasing it. So if the board's
And
okay with those 2 dates, we'll put them. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I know last time we talked about this, when we have something that's a somewhat finite issue that we're dealing with, is there, I don't know what time you would tell folks to get online to watch or to participate versus if you did it at the beginning of the meeting?
Yeah, so what I was anticipating to put it, just like what we do, what we're gonna do for now on our agendas for like zoning cases to be reviewed, is to actually put a time on the agenda. I would recommend either 6 or 6:30 for those 2, because we'll have to do a public notice. Mr. Rushing would have to send out a public notice of those hearing dates to the newspapers, and we'll have to publicize it as well.
Okay. I'm fine with that, those
I
dates.
am too.
All right, thank you, board. I'll work with Mr. Rushing to get that out. Thank you, board. Next item in your packet is the biweekly report for the sheriff's office. Are there any questions for the sheriff? And it starts on page 49 of your packet.
Just if there's any concerns or elevated activity that the board needs to be aware of.
No, sir. No, sir. We're not seeing anything that's of any increase. We've had some meetings and discussed those with our command staff as well too. We're not seeing anything that's notable for anything.
Okay, good.
So as you're doing, you've increased the business checks tremendously. Everything seems to be pretty secure.
Yes,
You've
ma'am.
seen no problem.
We did have one incident of a theft of some tires and rims over the weekend from one of the auto dealerships. But other than that, nothing else.
Great. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, board. Next item is on page 79 of your packet is the biweekly report for HR. Are there any questions?
I had no question.
No question.
Thank you, board. Next item is on page 83 of your packet is the Community Development and Risk Department's biweekly report. I will tell you, these are the updated numbers, so you see some changes there. We are going to also work on, staff is going to work on a kind of projection model. And we did include data that was brought up at the last meeting compared to this time last year. We have seen a significant decrease compared to this time last year. 2 reasons that staff kind of reported to me. Obviously, one is the pandemic. Two is that a lot of these sections that are under construction are not open yet. So the ability for new parcels, for them to be issued for permits to build houses, that ability is not there. So we'll see a couple of these phases hopefully open up in the next month or so, and we should see an increase, and we'll show some projections of what we're thinking for the rest of the year as well. Are there any questions for staff?
When you made the comment at the beginning where you said we received several permits today, or permit requests today, were those single family or what were those?
Yeah, we got a couple of single family, and then actually since Friday, we've had 3 single family permits come in, and we've taken some calls on some additional ones, so.
Okay. Good. And then as far as the revenue projections, will we be modifying this to show the 15% dip?
Yeah, we can. We can definitely take a look at that. This, so what we redid the entire spreadsheet based on the auditor's website. So we took the information directly off the auditor's property search on there and the new features that the auditor has on his website. So we're able to modify the spreadsheets are ours. The formulas are ours, so we can make adjustments as when needed.
Okay.
Thank you, Board. On page 89 is the biweekly report for IT. Are there any questions?
None.
I had none.
Everything seems to be going pretty well, Alex, when in regards to IT and with the limited staff and that's
Yeah.
happening in the town.
Obviously, if you look at last month's number, the big increase there was getting, of course, the board set up on remote meetings, pushing up our Microsoft Teams as well as our Nextiva rollout for the employees that were working from home. And then actually working with those employees when they got home to make sure everything was working and they had access to their files here, as well as the phone system. So, yes, as right now, very limited. They're working from home as well, back to business IT. So there has been a few times that their employees had to be in the government center or out in the fire stations. Anytime anybody from the outside comes in, they're following the township policy. They are pre-screened, as well as we're taking their temperatures as well. So we're kind of in a holding pattern in regards to some projects in IT, until we get back to normal. So we'll, once we get staff back up and running, so we're hopefully see that trend, the lower numbers continue, other than what we saw last month in March, but that was all related to COVID-19.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 92 of your packet is the biweekly report for the road department. Are there any questions?
So based on Mr. Park's first comment, the old furniture was all removed from the finance department. Has the new furniture arrived yet?
Oh yeah, all day. They were working on it all day. Yeah, it looks nice. They left probably about 4 o'clock. So tomorrow, and I'll let Mr. Rushing speak, but I think staff's going to be putting everything back together, back on the tables, and it does look nice. It's a lot better than what they had. Mr. Rushing?
Oh, yes, thank you, Board. They were in probably about 7:45 this morning working. Stopped in later this afternoon, still putting some fine touches to it, but it creates more of a collaboration atmosphere and more of an open space to hopefully allow staff to have that collaboration and cross-training that I desire.
Good.
Awesome. Good.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 93 of your packet. First item is the priority dispatch agreement. This came up, the board did approve the agreement at a previous meeting. However, there was questions about whether we could do a long-term agreement, and we can. The information there is on page 93 with a motion, and the fire chief's on here to answer any questions.
I had no questions. Thanks for going back and making the request and bringing this back to the board. So,
Yes.
you're welcome. Thank you. I'll make a motion to accept the quote from Priority Dispatch for National Queue Service for fiscal years 2021, 2022, and 2023 in the amount of $26,520 annually, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
I second.
Trustee Kretz,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yeah.
Trustee Wallace.
Good job.
Thank you, board. Next item is the COVID-19 impact. Information begins on page 93 and finishes on 94, followed by your biweekly report on page 95. I'll let the chief have a few comments. Obviously, we're seeing some changes in responses.
Yeah, so the short version is that we have not had a surge, so that's been good for Beavercreek. In fact, the social distancing has actually decreased our call volume. We're down about 12% over last year this time. So it goes to show what level of activity drives at least part of our workload. Currently, and I confirmed it again this morning from last Thursday's numbers, there are 7 residences under observation and or quarantine. That's not necessarily people, that's the actual residence itself. So think 1 to 4 people at each of those residences.
Lost the audio.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. And 14 have dropped off the list. The last one that was added about a week ago. So we're not even seeing new cases of known or suspected COVID. And to date, we have not knowingly transported anybody that's ended up testing positive. So most of those folks are dropping off the list without us having any sort of intervention. So we continue to practice all of our contingency plans, especially the PPE conservation. But right now we're in actually a pretty good position. So we're cautiously optimistic that we'll get through this without too much difficulty.
Great.
Good.
Awesome.
Any questions on the biweekly report?
No.
I have none. Thanks for all the information.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, board. That's all I had.
Okay. Our legal advisor?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Our fiscal officer, Mr. Rushing.
Yes, thank you, board. A couple hours ago, you received an email from Ms. Jan Schultz on the 2019 year-end fund summary report. I'm happy to report that we have finished posting all entries for 2019. I had Jan sent out the report to have the board members realize the overall cash position of the various funds. Although I cannot speak to the individual activity of each of the funds, obviously having occurred before my tenure with the township. One of the things I do want to note, though, is when I look at a fund summary report, one of the items that you would immediately look to is the beginning fund balance of 1/1 versus the ending fund balance of 12/31, and the overall net position of that fund in terms of if it increased or decreased. Obviously, when looking at a fund summary report, you want to pay close attention to your operating funds or the funds that support personnel. And in particular, the general fund, which many entities use as, for lack of a better term, the reserve fund for the entire enterprise to be able to stabilize various accounts if need be. I'm happy to report that the general fund had a overall cash carryover balance of over $522,000 from beginning 2019 to year ending 2019. As we talk about COVID-19 impacts, we will obviously see various impacts as reported by the County Budget Commission, as well as through state shared revenue. The administrator spoke to the gas tax. Obviously, with less folks driving, you will see a decrease in that. Trustee Kretz had a very valid point earlier when you mentioned the property tax settlement. The property tax settlements, residents are not exempted from paying their property taxes. The estimated 15% decrease that they're projecting is a aggregate number across the entire county based off of residents either through foreclosures or through choosing not to pay their property tax in a timely manner. But that does not forbade them from paying that eventually. So we will see that revenue, but it just regards to the timing of that revenue. But in addition to that, one of the things I do want to point to the board's attention is that also in that memo from the County Budget Commission, many counties, I can speak to Montgomery County as well as Warren County, as I experienced in both of those counties. Many counties in the state of Ohio are seeking permission from the Ohio Department of Taxation, the Ohio Tax Commissioner, to extend the deadline of property tax collection. They're seeking a month extension. So what would that mean to local entities is we will receive our second half settlement a month later. So in terms of cash flow projections, my office will take a close look to ensure that we have sufficient cash to meet our accounts payable and payroll liabilities, as we will receive potentially, hasn't been approved by the Department of Taxation yet, but potentially a month extension in terms of when the second half settlement for 2020 will occur. As you look at the fund summary, again, please take note of the overall fund balances. Obviously, several funds have planned expenditures and are at the end of their levy cycle. So although with some funds, they may be decreasing, but that is a planned decrease and is a common occurrence when you're at the end of a levy cycle. In addition to the 2019 fund report, I have engaged with Plattenberg CPA. Again, Plattenberg is a audit firm that will help compile financial statements and review financial statements, as well as the various footnotes and bank reconciliations for the township as the board authorized on April 1. I have engaged with them and reviewed their proposal. We will be working towards the financial statements as 2019, all of our entries are in. I want to thank legal. Legal had reviewed the agreement with James Investment. We had entered in officially with the agreement with James Investment. They do have our last statements and last activity from Morgan Stanley, so they're very well aware of when our various instruments are maturing, and they have been in contact with Huntington Bank to facilitate that process to engage with Morgan Stanley of transferring our investment holdings. So I want to thank Trustee Kretz for that recommendation. They are working towards that. In addition to our depositories, Ms. Schultz and I have a kickoff meeting with Huntington Bank on Friday. It's a virtual meeting to transfer officially our depository over and get that process engaged. Being that we do already have 2 accounts with Huntington, the process will hopefully be more streamlined. However, as you can imagine, across the nation, all banking institutions are very, very heavily taxed with their consumer requests, especially as stimulus checks do go out. And they're trying to manage it. Being that we're a government entity, we're being prioritized, but has been a little bit of a delay. Obviously, if we were during a normal time, it would be different. I do want to mention to the board, per the Ohio Revised Code, I did submit the investment policy to the Ohio Auditor of State. I wanted to ensure that the Auditor of State, per the Ohio Revised Code, had a copy of our investment policy. The last copy of the investment policy the Auditor of State had was from 2008. So in theory, the ORC requires the investment policy on file, so that was submitted. I do want to bring to the board's attention There is a piece of legislation pending in the Ohio General Assembly that I believe is of particular importance to not only townships, but to all political jurisdictions. And that's Senate Bill 244. Senate Bill 244 would require all fiscal officers and treasurers in the state of Ohio to provide to the succeeding treasurer or fiscal officer a certificate of transition. This certificate of transition would include pertinent information to the successor's office, including bank account information, investment holdings, PIN, and other significant data so that the incoming fiscal officer can adequately perform their statutory duties. Right now, obviously, with COVID, the General Assembly is out of session. We are still in the midst of an election cycle, but as they reconvene, I do encourage the board to review Senate Bill 244, and if in agreement, as I am, to provide your support to our local legislators on having that be adopted. But other than that, that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rushing. I appreciate all the information you've provided. We have had, I don't think anybody's had really any meetings that any trustee wants to comment about.
No meetings.
Yeah, tomorrow there is a virtual Green County Regional Planning meeting, and Nathaniel's Grove is on the agenda. So I sent that out to Community Development and Risk.
Thank you.
And staff will be remote in on the meeting as well.
Mr. Rushing, I had one comment for you, just to, and it's past practice, but I don't know if you were in that queue or not, or that loop, to make sure that especially in lieu of that 1 month delay you were talking about, as far as making sure that we get our request in for an advance. So we typically do that for each half payment, so that they'll start advancing that to us as funds begin to come in. So especially in lieu of that 1 month delay, it might be prudent to get that advance request in on file as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Does the board know, or the administrator know, was a resolution adopted prior to authorize the advance?
Yes, and we delivered it to the auditor's office. So,
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
We were
Now
actually the
allow
first
me to
jurisdiction
request
to do that.
it. Thank you.
But Mr. Zahara, if that resolution, we do one for each request,
No, for the year.
or we did a blanket one for the year?
Correct, yeah. And and what we've done in the last several years is part of the, we put it as part of the township reorganization as one of those things that we do as a checkoff list. So, so besides reorganizing the board,
I couldn't remember if it was for
Yep.
each half or for the whole year.
yeah, it's for the whole year. Yep.
Good. Okay. Other than that, I had no other items.
Mrs. Dean, do you have any other items to discuss?
No other items.
Hearing no other items, I think we need to go then into executive session. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to move to executive session under the Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22 G1, to consider the compensation of a public employee.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Crutz,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to come out of executive session at 6:31 p.m.
Second.
Trustee Crutz,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting today.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Crutz,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yeah. Thank
Thank-
you very much, everyone, and
Have a good evening.
see you next time.
All right, thank you, board.